to answer that question.
I listened with interest to that last session because in Plymouth, and I think countrywide, if you're looking at this with a fair wind, mental health practices for children are generally improving, but the demand is extraordinary. What is the biggest challenge? So you've got to meet those two things together, right, to get to a service that is something we can be proud of for our young people. And clearly we have work to do on both. So what is the biggest challenge in improving the services? And then we'll come on to demand in a minute. If I can start with you, James.
I would say that the biggest challenge at the moment is rebalancing the allocation of resources towards early intervention for those with emerging issues and to ensure that the needs of the most vulnerable and underserved groups of all, which I would include young adults and those in vulnerable socio-economic groups such as care leavers and young black men are better met. And I think we have seen some progress. We're certainly getting evidence from our members at local level that in relation to early intervention there is certainly reasonable progress in quite a few areas, but it's too slow, there's not enough progress. But in relation to young adults and provision for more vulnerable groups, we haven't really seen any progress at all, and we think there's a particular problem that's not being picked up really and addressed through carriage transformation at the moment relating to young adults. And one of the reasons for that is that although local transformation plans were is very, very explicitly encouraged to cover from 0 to 25, the funding, the additional funding that's been given to CCGs is primarily for work with under 18-year-olds. So there's not an incentive for commissioners to improve services for young adults as much as there should be, and adult mental commissioners aren't picking up that responsibility themselves either, even though, of course, young adults primarily actually, about if we're talking about 16 to 25-year-olds, the majority of that responsibility actually should lie with adult mental health commissioners, but they're sort of leaving young adults to CAMS. So there's a particular issue there, and we're concerned that the failure to provide those vulnerable groups and young adults with access to mental health services when they most need them is actually constitutes a breach of their human and legal rights, and also their rights.
So this comes to the nub of part of the problem, is that in cities, I'm sure all over the UK and generally, how do we get people to be intervened upon earlier, where it is cheaper and chances of recovery are better and you can treat more people? You talk about people falling through the gaps there. How do we meet this challenge of people working outside of their stovepipes, whether it's public health or NHS England, to treat these people? If Miranda, I can come on to you for that.
So I think one of the things we desperately and urgently need is a better evidence base for those sorts of interventions. So I think there's a great consensus that we need earlier intervention. There's a great consensus there's lots more that can be done in schools, colleges, universities. There's less consensus of what's the best way of doing that and a clear evidence base of what will help and what won't help. So there's a real urgent need to do that, and there's lots that Department for Health and Department for Education are doing in terms of randomised control trials and things they're trying to put in place. But while we're finding out those things, we've still got to decide what to do. So having a sort of rationale of how to decide what to do and having agencies work together, so it's a bigger issue than just health. It's health, social care and education, working together using a common measurement framework of what it is they're trying to achieve for their population and measuring that at the population level while you're doing these interventions to see what makes the most difference.
And this is work going on now, because whilst people like me and everyone on this panel will always ask for more money for health, right, and for mental health, and we've got a budget again tomorrow. Those conversations around structural changes is something for you guys, really, as the not for you, sorry, for the NHS and the public health teams. And actually, we've got to drive that change faster, as well as getting new money.
I agree, and certainly from my sense around the country, there are things happening. So there's fantastic stuff happening in Greater Manchester, for example. There are fantastic initiatives where communities are coming together to do exactly that, working with public.
So why, in your view, are they not taking best practice in some areas, and we're doing the same in Plymouth as well, and actually having a strategic lead across the United Kingdom to roll this out so that we have a national mental health care service that we can be proud of. In your view, why is that not happening?
I think there are a number of issues here. One issue I would say is that it's difficult to know what is best practice. It really is. So it's not that's not dodging the question, that actually the evidence base for what sort of preventions are the best and where we should put our energies.
Okay, so how do you judge outcomes then? What outcomes for young people should we expect from mental health services?
So the sort of outcomes that I think are really important to think about are what are the goals that young person and their family are important to them. So clearly for the vast majority of young people and families, that will be things around symptom change and functioning. But for other people, there'll be a balance between how much they want to control symptoms and how much they want to do other things in their life. So there's a range of measures around mental health and well-being, which are not exactly the same, that people need to measure both at the community level and at the individual level of people seeing and accessing services.
Okay. I mean, that's quite an intractable problem. If there's no measurables to come out of this, to come out of mental health treatment that you can then look at, take to government and say, you should invest in these because this is working and that's what surely we need to come up with
so I think
a bunch of measurable factors that we can prove as an evidence base.
Completely agree. So one of the things that we're involved in and people involved in nationally are agreeing common measurement frameworks that people are using at a population level. So exactly as the Children's Commissioner was talking about, schools are now investing in measurement frameworks where they're measuring their populations year on year so that we can actually see what impact interventions are having, as well as services trying to measure outcomes for individual children seen within the service.
Okay. And Sarah, what is the issue that young people most commonly raise with you when they talk about mental health services? And we've talked about delays and things like that and people not being contacted. What is the most common issue you see?
I'd also like to get feedback on that one, but in terms of that question, it's often just the really basic things that we've been hearing. It's where do I go to get help? Who can help me? Who do I talk to? Where can I go? I feel lonely. Who can help me? I'm isolated. Where do I go? Can I talk to my mum and dad? Can I talk to my teacher? Probably not. This is a bit scary. So it is complete confusion about where to go and who can help and who's qualified to help. And then on top of that, what information can I trust? What information is out there? It's really very basic. And then on top of that, when they're worried about their friend, what can I do to help them? What's going to make it worse? What's going to make it better?
Okay, so whose job is it to do that? So if you were to transpose this, for example, into veterans' care, it's exactly the same thing. You don't know where to go, you don't know the quality of the care you're going to get. Whose responsibility is it in health that we can go on the doors and speak to people who vote for us? And this is their public money that goes into this. Who's in charge? Who does that? Whose responsibility is that?
Well, I think you've been hearing that there are too many people in charge of too little bits. And what we don't have, so we're talking about measurements, we don't have, for instance, schools have no responsibility around well-being, although some schools see that as being core to their work, but we don't measure it. We don't have a national measure around well-being. We don't have schools expected to do that. So schools can't play their part. So it's how do we streamline each part of the system so they know what part they're playing. Whereas at the moment, everyone is groping their way about their particular part. And the only people who are clearly pointed at is CANS.
Yeah.
And CANS, as we have again heard, is overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So the other issue we have, in terms of what's the challenge, is workforce.
Yeah.
We have a low morale in our CANS workforce. They are overwhelmed. They don't want to turn people away, but they have to just to cope. We've got real issues on recruitment into CANS. We have seen from the EPI report very serious gaps in the workforce across the country. We have had a long history of short-term posts, fixed-term contracts, and what the workforce, people aren't coming into the mental health workforce either. So we have to do something to actually promote this as being a place worth working in, and that this goes beyond the current pocket of money that we have at the moment, so that people can see beyond 2020 there will still be a worthwhile profession to be part of.
No, I get that. I absolutely get that. And we must work on the offer, obviously. The other side of this is the education, isn't it? Right? And if we don't wade through people self-diagnosing, things like that, we are never going to be able to reach those who are really poorly, who we have a duty to look after. What are your organisations doing around closing the other end of the divide? So we've got the service provision here, but the demand is huge. How do we reduce that demand through education? Is anyone, for example, doing any lobbying with the Department for Education around statutory requirements at school?
If I could just, Young Minds has a campaign called Wise Up, and it is addressing exactly these issues. Because schools have an important role to play, as we've been hearing, but we have to create an atmosphere where there is reward for schools when they do this. So we have the Healthy Schools programme, which is at the moment unclear whether it's going forward or not. It's only on primary schools, so it's not on secondary schools. There's no recognition for schools if they do well around well-being, if they're doing great stuff around how their young people are. We know well-being outcomes at age 16 is more important in terms of life outcomes than qualifications. But unless we balance this up so that there is a measurement that all schools are involved with, so that at the moment, again, the EPI report showed that only 30% of Ofsted reports even mentioned well-being or mental health within the schools. So it's very patchy, what is being considered, and there is no encouragement for schools to do this. We have heard in a commission that we carried out with the Royal College Psychiatrists and the Coalition for Children and Young People's Mental Health, from head teachers saying, this is about values-based CAMs, was head teachers saying they focused on well-being because they believed it was crucial, but they had no support from their local authority or from DLB, and at times felt they were doing it at their own reputational risk. So unless that side of it is actually encouraged, unless this becomes a fundamental expectation of our education system about educating young people about themselves, which is more than just PHSE, it's about the whole school culture, and it's more than just mindfulness. We are not evening up and enabling young people to have good mental health, and we are simply investing in poor mental health.
Just briefly and finally, is there, James, why do you think that seems pretty sensible stuff to do? Does it cost too much money? Is there a lack of desire among the government to introduce more statutory requirements? I mean, what is it at the moment?
Well, I mean, I would completely agree with Sarah. I mean, I think the issue is it comes back a lot to actually what data everyone's required to keep. Because actually, if schools aren't keeping data on how to prevent on their impacts on preventing mental health problems, and if the mental health system isn't counting that preventative work either, there's no incentive for any providers or commissioners to actually ensure that happens.
I mean, just to say that I think there is a great interest from schools in doing this. So, for example, we're involved in rolling out something called the Wellbeing Measurement Framework, which, thanks to funding from the Big Lottery Fund, is freely available to schools. We've been oversubscribed by schools wanting to measure wellbeing and mental health in their schools. We have a Schools in Mind network organised by the Anna Freud National Centre for Children and Families, which schools are signing up to. So I think schools are up for it. They are struggling with their own competing demands.
I found one of my marine academies in Plymouth actually has a day where the children leave the school and all the teachers from other schools come in and they talk about mental health. But that is a leadership issue for local and national government, I suggest, rather than schools doing it off their own back, because then you won't get that standardised care.